Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Kitchen. This one is very special, and we are celebrating the 100th anniversary of the birth of Golden Girls actress Estelle Getty. And I am so honored to have my friend George Geary as my special guest today. He is a professional chef, and he made all the cheesecakes the girls ate on the show. So, George, I'm so happy to have you here today.
I'm so thrilled because it's just 100 years old. I celebrated Betty White's right after her passing, which was bittersweet. And now we have Estelle's 100th, and she was the youngest Golden Girl. So it's really a love fest.
It really is. And, I watched the Golden Girls as a little kid in the 1980s, and a lot of the humor just completely went over my head to a large degree. But I've rediscovered the show as an adult, and it just has a fanatical fan base of which I am a part. I go to Golden Girls drag shows in Los Angeles and San Francisco. I'm such a fan of that show. And especially during lockdown, it provided me so much comfort. I kind of felt like I was the fifth girl at some points. I would even put them on my laptop and eat dinner at my kitchen table. So it felt like I was sitting at the table with them eating.
Yeah, the one thing that I wish I would have done was taken pictures. We didn't have camera phones back then.
That wasn't a thing.
No. And in fact, I was on the set the last weeks of Will and Grace, and I had been there when it was the first reincarnation of that show, because I work out at Warner Brothers once in a while and Universal, and that's where they taped it. And I was so happy to be in that living room, sitting on the couch, taking a picture, because we didn't have phones like that. And the same thing with Friends. I was on that set over at Warner Brothers, and you don't have a phone to take pictures. So now Universal has that touring Friends exhibition. Have you seen that? Where you can sit on the couch, which is not really the couch, but
I've heard about it.
yeah, and you can sit there and take pictures. And so people can feel like they've been on the set or been there with Friends or with Will and Grace. But Golden Girls, I only have one picture, and it's with Rue. And we were doing a fundraiser for a benefit, and it was Valentine's Day, which I thought was fascinating. And it was their first year, and not many people knew about them. And I don't know if people would have showed up. Not people showed up, but it wasn't like if we did it today. If it was today, oh
Love
my,
because
she she would be mobbed with selfies.
there's a Golden Girls convention that happens every year. I can't think of another TV show, especially from the 80s, that's kind of taken on a complete life of its own the way the show has.
I would say the closest, but it's gone. You said the 80s. It was I Love Lucy. They had conventions. They had all they were on a little bit less in years, but they had more episodes, I believe, than Golden Girls did over the years. So I Love Lucy was the only one. They would have a convention every year, years back, 15, 20 years ago, in Burbank at the hotel out there by the airport. But Golden Girls, Chicago has the convention. The drag queens all over the country do the except Florida. They don't do it in Florida, but they do it everywhere else. And it's just, it has taken on a life. And if you look at the topics, because you talked about that when COVID hit, the topics still run clear. And they were the first to talk about topics that are taboo on television. First of all, old people having sex. Oh my, old people, our parents, they didn't have sex, but we don't know how we got there. But, oh no, that would have never happened. And going on dates and fighting about which man is going to love them more, and how many after marriage pass away, how many people. I was watching the one with Rue, and she and Rose were fighting about how many lovers they've had, and aging. No one talks about that. No one talks about that. And then social issues. Homosexuality came out with that. Lesbian came out. AIDS came out a little bit in their private philanthropy, they talked about that. But it was just something that we didn't have that. It was more of a real issue. They talked about politics. If you look, kind of, they mentioned Gary Hart. Most people go, okay, who's Gary Hart? They have to look him up. Oh, he ran for office and he got in trouble for a scandal on a boat. So it's really a fascinating. I think that's why the show still works. Watching it, and they never thought it would. A bunch of old ladies in their 50s, and I'm in my 60s, but that's what it was, 50s. They thought it was old.
As I talk about, Estelle Getty's on the cemetery tour, of course, which you've taken.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one of the things I talk about too is I think seniors are so badly marginalized in American culture. Like you rarely see them in movies or TV. And if you do, a lot of the time, it's the mean, grumpy old man or the nutty, crazy cat lady. And it's like a bit role. So for the seniors to take center stage and be the stars, and I think those cruel stereotypes are not really indicative of the seniors I know, because most of the seniors I know, they love traveling, enjoying life, going out, having friends, doing things. I mean, they're people. They're still people.
Yeah.
And to me, the Golden Girls really celebrated women and friendship and just making the most of life at any age.
Instead of the reality shows of housewives in their 40s trying to look 20 and divorced 200 times and fighting like cats and dogs, versus these four women that really had relationship, friendship, and things like that. So I think they could do another show, not for maybe two, something to that effect of what happens when you get older and how do you handle it. I worked on cruise ships for 9 years, and it was mostly older people. I was very young on the ships. I was in my 50s and 60s, early 60s, and I felt like I was at a college or a high school group because there were cliques with hundreds of people at that age. There were groups. Oh, we're this group, and we have tea with these people. And there was one time I get invited to tables to sit down. They think I drink alcohol, but I don't have that much pull. I have to pay for it. And they would say things like, "Don't eat over there," And I was like, "You guys are crazy," because they're like high school cliques. When you get that big of a group, but you get four people living together. And by chance, I mean, if people have watched the show and know how they all four came together by answering an ad at a grocery store. And then a few years later, the funniest story is in the grocery stores when they're buying condoms and they have to do a price check. And I used to work at a grocery store. That was my first job. And price checks, if it was something like that, you wouldn't do it over the announcement. You would have the box boy go get the price check. But you just cringe because we've all bought something. If it was something simple at the grocery store that it's personal, maybe from the pharmaceutical area, and they brought it out there right in the front and said, okay, these women are sexually active. And that's what one of them, I think it was Rose, yells back at one guy, something that we're active, or I forget the scene.
Blanche says it, Blanche says something like, we're going to go on vacation with some gentleman friends and we're doing the safe and right thing to do, protecting ourselves. And she kind of does this whole, what we would now call sex positive talk into the microphone. And I'm just like, what? As an adult watching that, I'm like,
this is the 1980s.
80s. She was so ahead of her time. Oh my God.
39 years ago when that show broadcast for the first time. And I was involved in the pilot, and we did that at Sunset Gower stages. In fact, I go past that stage once in a while and I think about it of that day. I wasn't out there on the set. So I was only on the set twice. I was young. I was working in other areas. I did more than just Golden Girls. I was working on a bunch of shows. It was the food that I was doing. And the guy says, we need a wedding cake. And it's for this old lady show. There's four of them. It's not going to do very well. And I thought, oh, okay. It was one of the runners. So I did this wedding cake. And they did the pilot, and it didn't get picked up at first. It was about 8 months later. The guy comes back. He says, "Do you remember you did this wedding cake for the old lady show?" I said, "Yeah, I kind of do." He goes, "We need another dessert. Not a wedding cake. In fact, I had to do another prototype of a wedding cake later on." And I thought, well, that's interesting. The old lady show is going to get picked up. That's what he kept calling it, the old lady show, the old lady show. And I'm expecting 90-year-olds, I did. And when they said, oh, they were in their 50s and late 40s, that's old lady. But I was in my 20s. So they said they were tossing around a cake of some sort they were going to sit around and eat. And they said chocolate cake and bread. And the next episode filmed became episode like number 12. They banked that for a while. And if you go through in order the Golden Girls, and you get to like, I believe it's episode 12, where the first cheesecake is shown, Estelle looks different. They all have different looks to them because they had done that part of the pilot at the beginning, and then they pushed it and moved it later on into the season. And so I did the double chocolate cheesecake with whipped cream and chocolate sauce. And that was the very first cheesecake that I did on the show.
And is it true that B. Arthur actually did not like cheesecake?
Yes and no. She thought it was ridiculous. I've heard, and I heard back then, there's all these websites that say stories and stuff. In fact, I was shocked one day. There was a website, the top 30 things you don't know about Golden Girls, and I'm like number 12, that they had their own pastry chef behind the scenes, and then they highlighted me in my books. And I thought, wow, I never even heard of this person asking me this question. So it's out there, it's on all the movie things that I was the one. So I thought it was interesting that I've looked, because I'm working on my book that comes out in 2025. It'll be the 40th anniversary of the Golden Girls, and I've got the Golden Girl cheesecake book coming out.
Okay,
And yeah, and it's through Chronicle. So it's they're working on all the pictures and stuff. But 2025 is going to be here tomorrow, and they want to put it at the 40th anniversary of when it came out. So I've been watching the episodes with cheesecake, and shockingly enough, there's only about 15 episodes that have cheesecake. There's not that many. And I did about 14 different cheesecakes and made them look different. They wanted them to look like they came from different bakeries. They never make them themselves there. And so this book will have 60, and we'll put them in categories of friendship, love, things like that. Instead of flavors, it'll be friendship cheesecakes. And then I've made my own types of cheesecakes up with these parameters and the places. Do you remember Sophia would talk about Wolfie's Diner?
Yeah. Place to go. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a real place. And I researched and found a recipe from Wolfie's Diner. So that recipe will be in there. It's not the best cheesecake, but it's in there. Mine. But there's different ones, like a peach cream cheese, peaches and cream cheesecake, because Blanche being from the South. And so that's what I'm going to work on. But I will have the original ones that I used on the show. And that would be a little pamphlet. We want a book. So we're going to go with 60 different cheesecakes.
That is fantastic. I cannot wait to get an autographed copy when that comes out.
I can't wait till yesterday. My next book that comes out in May, I just got the cover. So I'm excited about that one. So that's book number 16. And then I have one more. It will be Golden Girls. So that'll be number 17. So
excellent. What's the next book you have coming out?
It's Made in California Part 2.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
Yeah. Because California was the forefront of every type of diner, restaurant that went nationwide. And I was researching, and some are closed, but they're historical stories of these places, no recipes. It's just like In-N-Out Burger. We've got that in the first volume. The second volume has things like Cheesecake Factory, which I've done a lot of work for over the years. I'm just known as the cheesecake guy, and that was before Golden Girls. I was, as you know, I was the pastry chef for the Walt Disney Company for 10 years, and I probably made, well, we did about 200 cheesecakes a day out there. So there were, and 7 days a week, there were a lot of cheesecakes. So I kind of know how to make one. And I'm going to teach you guys how to make one that's easy and fast. It's going to be the one that I made a lot during the show. It was the plain type of cheesecake. And once in a while, looking at the show tapes today, I see that once in a while there was a half of a cheesecake they served. They wanted to make it look like they had been eaten once. So I forgot I had to make a bunch of halves sometimes. So that's how it went.
Excellent. Well, you sent me the recipe, and I do have to say I had to make it in advance because the kitchen at my apartment is very small. My apartment's small, and if I turn on the stove, this entire place will be 350 degrees. So I've officially reached the time of year when any cooking I do that involves an oven has got to be done after sunset. I open up all the windows and doors, then do my cooking and late at night.
You don't have air conditioning?
Just in my bedroom.
Oh,
Yeah.
because a lot of people, we do have hot days. I'm between you and Palm Springs, and we're at 104 right now, I think. But I have the air going and I have the oven going because I have to make a bunch of retro cookies for a photo shoot later on today. So I've got the air going to where I hope you can't hear it and stop buzzing. So once in a while, I do morning shows. They say, could you turn the air conditioning off? We can hear the buzz in the background. So,
wow. Very cool. Well, you obviously need it because you cook a tremendous amount. And I can't wait to learn about this cheesecake because I tried to make it myself last night, but I want to hear your notes all about it.
well, your recipe and the one that I put up on my website is using a mixer. And mixers are very loud and stuff. And when I'm working on the Golden Girl cheesecake book, I realized using my food processor is faster, a lot faster. So I'm going to do it with the food processor, and you don't have to worry as much with the mixer, which most people will have a mixer, not a food processor. The recipe works perfect, and you put the eggs in one at a time when I explain that part. Here, we put it all in and turn it on almost. So it's a little easier. And shall I start making the cheesecake? I'm going to take a swig of my A&W root beer. This was the first chain in California, 1912. And they were started in Lodi, California. And that's in my Made in California book. And
it's kind of off topic, but we should do an episode on one of your Made in California or your LA's legendary restaurant books, because I have a 1946 first edition Brown Derby cookbook.
Oh, I have one too. And that's what started my Hollywood books. I bought it in San Francisco. It was the most I'd paid for a used cookbook at the time. I won't tell you what I paid now. And because I have a collection of antique cookbooks that I use a lot. As if you do also with Hollywood. I've got a few. We should compare which Hollywood ones we have, because
oh my God,
there was one that just came up that was just too expensive, but I have all of it copied, so if I need it. But anyway, the Brown Derby was reason why I did the Hollywood book. I call it the Hollywood book, the LA Legendary Restaurant book, because of that cookbook. And talking with people and finding more out about the Brown Derby, which when I would travel, because I still travel the country teaching, I was at Purdue University and I was talking about that book in Hollywood. And the first question was, will you have the Brown Derby in it? Everyone knows Brown Derby. And I think it's because I Love Lucy and the Brown Derby scene and with William Holden. And it was just a phenomenal place. I only went there twice over the years. I've been to Walt Disney World, their reenactment, not close to me of it's okay, but the menu there, I have antique Brown Derby menus from the 50s that I bought at auction. And I love how they have, in Walt Disney World, they have 5 items and that's it you can buy. And you're like, I really kind of like the paprika chicken. That's really good that I've made out of the book.
Made that out of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's so you wonder how these stars lived with all of the food that they ate, and they'd go there and then have to film and drink 2 martinis and smoke cigarettes. But that's kind of how it was. So anyway, let's get to making this cheesecake. But I think a brown derby show would be good.
Love that. Oh my gosh. I would be willing to drive out to you and we could do it from
Oh,
there.
we could put on the side of the brown derby. We could stand there and talk about how horrible it is where it's at. You've been to the building?
Yes, I've been to the one in Los Feliz and the one on Wilshire as well.
The Wilshire one's really sad. That's the one I call original,
Yeah.
because that's the only one that had the brown derby look, the hat. And so many people at the beginning, when they put that up, they thought it was a men's clothing store, because we had Tail of the Pup, that was a little later, but then we had all these different buildings that had these looks, and it was what was inside, like the chili bowl. Those look like chili bowls. People were thinking, why do they have a store that has hats in it? But anyway, so what we have, let's go through the ingredients, and then I'm going to tell you easy, fast how to do this. Number one is your pan. Everyone makes cheesecakes with a cheesecake spring form pan. It looks like you made a pie dish, which that works. Yeah, that works. I would call that a cheese pie, which I have a whole section on cheese pies. You might not use all the filling because it's a little smaller. But did you have some filling left over?
I didn't, but honestly, I had a ton of the graham cracker left over. So there's a ton of that in my freezer right now. I have a spring form pan. It's just my place is so tiny. I just couldn't find it, and I would have had to empty out all my cabinets. And I have one.
Way in the back, I bet, because you don't use it very often. And springform doesn't work very well, and the bottom has like a washboard type feel to it. So this is a cheesecake pan, and I talk about this in all. I have 4 cheesecake books. Golden Girls will be 5. So it looks like a regular pan, and it like a tart pan. It pops up. So this is a cheesecake pan. You can find them on Amazon. Just put cheesecake pan. It's a pop-up. And what you do when you're trying to remove the cheesecake is you take a large soup can, you put it on the bottom, and it goes down. So a spring form rips the sides of the cheesecake, and this keeps it like this. And what I do is I take the cheesecakes and freeze them in this pan, and then I pop them out. But this one I did make fresh. It didn't get frozen. So there's your cheesecake pan. Then we have our graham crackers with butter. Don't use oil, don't use margarine, use butter, because butter will firm up. The other things don't firm up very well. All I do is the bottom. You can see it looks like the sides on the cheesecake are done, but it's only the bottom. This is the browning of the cream cheese. You don't use so much cream cheese. When I was at Disney, I would look at what people left over on their plates, and they were leaving crust. Because if you look at the side and the bottom of the cheesecake, you'd have this much. You can't get in that corner. So this is too hard to put a fork in. So I thought, I'm just going to do the bottom and save on graham crackers too. So that's what we do. We put it on the bottom and smooth it out and smack it down. And just with your hand, so it's just the bottom part. Just like that. I'm going to put this off to the side so I have some more room. And toss that in the freezer to firm up so that butter firms it up. Or if you got the oven going, throw it in the oven while you make the mixture. Either way works perfect. Food processor. Now make sure the food processor works. You have everything put together. I used to work on the Food Network. Didn't have a show there, but I worked with Robin Leach and stuff. And most of the people that did have shows never tested the food processor beforehand. So you always test it to make sure it's working and all the items are working. There goes my phone. Let me turn it off because it's my mother's favorite person, spam.
Call from unavailable.
Unavailable. And that's what I get instead of spam, And it always happens when you're doing something live like this. And no one will leave a message. See? If they only knew who they could talk to. I'd give them food tips when they call. Nobody leaves a message. So anyway, there's Mr. Spam. So cream cheese, everything room temperature. What I mean, it's 102 degrees, but in here it's 68, 70. So yeah, we because I'm baking. But I buy the log of 3 pounds of cream cheese. It's a lot less than you can go to Costco, Sam's Club, things like that, instead of the little 8-ounce packages, because 8-ounce packages are about 3 times as much as this stuff is. And you want it room temperature, and that's your secret, to where you can just plop it in here, and we put it around the food processor. And what I have is the metal blade in here. So we put some all over. Now, eggs, they aren't right out of the fridge. So they've been sitting here for about an hour. And we've got 6 eggs. I have pure vanilla extract from beans that I harvested myself in Madagascar. Listen to that. So I make my own vanilla. And we've got granulated sugar and fresh lemon juice. The little bit of tartness adds flavor to the whole thing. Same thing with vanilla. Even when you're making a chocolate cheesecake, like that double chocolate fudge cheesecake that I have in the next book, you use vanilla and it enhances the chocolate. It brings it out even more. And I put that in with my eggs. So I've got my lemon juice, my vanilla, and my eggs in here. Granulated sugar goes in. Now, if I'm using the mixer, so I'll talk you through the mixer real quick. Cream cheese, blend it up, add the sugar, blend it up. Eggs, while it's going, you blend it each one. After the last egg, you scrape the sides and you're done. Here, we dump it all in. And on. Rubber spatula. This is how easy and fast it is with the food processor if everything is room temperature. I'll bring this to the camera so you can see it more. You're going to scrape the sides once because something. Now, you might see if the cream cheese was not room temperature, you'll see some chunks. And if you do, you just blend it up a little bit more and ready to go. And
processor is that, if you don't mind my asking?
It's a Cuisinart 14 cup.
Okay.
And it comes with smaller bowls also. But there it is, all done. Can you see that?
Yes, it looks great.
And you pour this over the crust. You bake it for an hour. I have a cream cheese top or sour cream topping on this one, which the original I did that. And all that is after it's been baked. And over baking is probably one of the #1 things people do. In fact, a good friend of mine that used to be one of the actresses on the Waltons, she played Erin. She loves cooking. In fact, it was funny. I was coming home from a morning show, and she calls me and she says, "George, I'm making preserves." And she had a question about preserves. And I started laughing. I said, "Didn't Grandma Walton teach you how to make the preserves on the mountain?" She says, "No, she was always telling us to get out of the kitchen." So, but Mary McDunn that was Erin, she lives in Texas now. But she, for what was it, 4th of July, she made a cheesecake. She says, "Is it overdone?" Which it was. But I said, "It should be okay." She said she can still taste a little bit, not burnt, but just an off taste. So what you do is after 50 minutes, you look at it and the edges should be dry. The center will be jiggly a little bit, and then it's done. It continues to bake. It shouldn't be brown, 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 unless you have an oven that the heat source is up on top. So if you have a heat source, I have heat source comes from the bottom. Some do both, but I put it in the dead center. And after the hour, you set it off to the side for 10 minutes while you make the sour cream topping, which is just sour cream, a little vanilla, a little lemon juice again, and some sugar. And you put that on top, and then you put it back in the oven for 5 minutes, and it's done. I let it sit for about 4 hours before I put it in the refrigerator, just to make sure it's completely cool. And there were some years of Golden Girls that we would do whipped cream. They would put down, we want this, we want that, and I would do some crazy things. But this was the one that I did probably about 12 times, I'd say, maybe a little less, but this was the actual one that was plain. And also, normal cheesecakes are 9 inches, and we did 10 inches on it, so it looked better for the camera. So the Golden Girls cheesecake book will have 10-inch ones. So.
And the whipped cream was always in Blanche's bedroom, so.
Well, they said that one time, didn't they? They said, "Oh, yes, we have cream." I think they were eating cheesecake, and she goes, "Oh, let me go get it," and it was in the bedroom. You're absolutely right, and that's another thing you would never have talked about in the '80s, and it was kids wouldn't understand that.
No, I didn't at the time. Now I do.
But. No, and then you look at it and you go, "Oh my," "Oh, I can't believe this." It's similar to Bugs Bunny cartoons that were done in the '60s, and you watch it today and you go, I can't believe they just said that, but kids, it's interesting. You have different levels of the storyline on this, it's the one show, but adults see this and kids see this, and that's kind of how Golden Girls was. You laugh, but we taped on Friday nights. I would get like Monday when the script came out, they'd tell me what they needed. Sometimes it was fried chicken because I think it was, they had a little chicken, Henny Penny or something like that. They had what was that name of it?
Chicken that played the piano, and then they thought Angela had fried the chicken, and so Rose melted down over that, and Blanche said, "Well, it's not like they fried Doc Severinsen."
That's right, and people would know who Doc Severinsen was. You have to look up. I think there's even a book on looking up. They tell you with all these little, like Doc Severinsen and Gary Hart and these words that you kind of go, okay, who was that? But I had to make fried chicken for that show. And whenever I made food, cheesecakes was always 7 of them. 7 would go in that refrigerator. The only thing in those refrigerators were my cheesecake, and it really worked. The refrigerator did work, and it was Coke, Diet Coke, and Sprite were in the vegetable drawers, and Michael Berger was the warm-up guy, and we go back to Michael Berger in a minute. He warmed up the audience. If you've never been to a taping of a TV show, it takes, for a half-hour show, it takes like 4 or 5 hours, and you're there. And depending on the show and how much money they have, of what happens, of what they give away scripts, they give away T-shirts, they give away, and they have a lot of downtime because they run it like a play. They start from the beginning, go all the way to the end, and all the sets are in a row. Think of Golden Girls. They might have, if they aren't using Blanche's bedroom or Rose's bedroom, it's not on the set or the stage. But they start with, they have the kitchen, then they have the living room, the lanai if they need that. They weren't always out there, but if they were. And then they had the front door. And that was kind of how it flowed. And then they called them swing sets on the edges, which were the bedrooms if they needed them, and they would dress those. And they would go from start to finish. But let's say it's 2 days later in the storyline, everyone had to change clothes. If they'd have new makeup, or it's one of my favorite is when 2 of them are on, all of them are sick of some sort, and there's something plugged in, and Blanche comes in the living room. I think it was Dorothy was laying there with a heating pad. She's like, this better be a heating pad. Something like, it was double and double. Anyway, so they have to change clothes. So you get 30 minutes between them filming, and what do you do? So we have Michael Berger would warm up and talk about things, and they'd have music going. They'd have a dance contest. They'd have all sorts of things. I mean, if you have time and you go to a taping of a show, it's kind of fun because you can say you saw it, and then they show it 3 weeks later. So That's why it would take so long. And 7 cheesecakes they would need just in case that was the scene they had to redo constantly. They'd try out new jokes. So they would do the first and see if it worked, and then they'd rewrite. The writers are all in the front behind the cameras. And that's where the girls would have to learn new lines, things like that. And I had to have 7 cheesecakes in that fridge. The reason why Coke, Diet Coke, and Sprite, they would give that to the audience once in a while. If they answered a trivia question, or, you know, what kind of questions that Michael would have. Now, Michael, he did a show in the 80s called Mike and Maddie. It was a morning show. It was on NBC. It was a Disney product. Disney didn't own ABC at the time. And then I was their chef on that show, on the morning show in the 80s. So I was live on camera there, and Michael and I had worked on Golden Girls. Now we're on that. Then we speed forward to Betty White, and her last series was Hot in Cleveland. Michael became the warm-up person again. You can see this on YouTube, a lot of things like that with Michael and Betty talking and questions and stuff, because he was very fond of her, and she was a phenomenal lady, as were the other 3. But Estelle has a special place in my heart. 1993, I think it was, 92, I was the reporter for Christopher Street West, which was the Gay Pride Festival in Los Angeles, the parade. And I had her as one of the celebrities. So she and I were in the booth for hours together. And I mentioned in a lot of reporting, she was one of the very first advocates for healthcare for the AIDS crisis that was going on. Her nephew passed away at the age of 29, I think, 27 or 29. And she brought him into her home when people thought that they were people that you put out to pasture. And so she was just the most kind-hearted person you ever met. All 4 of them had a special place, but Estelle, by going out of her way, and she was in theater before. She did Golden Girls, and she did some television and movies also, but theater was her craft at first. And so many people were dying in those years, and she was doing benefits for them and things like that. And I believe all 4 girls did some AIDS benefits. I know I went to a couple of the girls were there. So back then you didn't talk about it. It was a gay issue, not a human issue in a lot of people's minds. The president didn't even talk about it. So now that I got everybody on a down note,
right. It's good to remember what
it was part of Estelle, you know. There were a handful of people, and she was one.
I just love her so much. I mean, to me, I love all of them very much, but no one can toss a one-liner like she could. But she could also be so great in dramatic parts, like the episode where her son Phil dies. That guts me every single time I've seen it.
There were some episodes that gotcha, you know. Rarely. They only put like 1 or 2 in a year like that, because it was supposed to be an uplifting show. But I'm so glad you have her on the Hollywood Forever tour. And I've been on your tour many times, and the very first time it was funny because I took my sister and my husband, and we were there, and you said hi, you know, and I know we've gotten to know each other even more over the years, but that first time I thought, we've only met once. And we're walking and stuff, and we got to Estelle Getty's, and you looked over at me and you said, "George, would you like to say something?" And I was like, first of all, okay, she knows me more than just, and she knows I know Gold, you know, and I was like, and my sister looked at me, she goes, "She wants you to talk about Estelle." I go, "Oh, okay."
On the spot.
But no, I'm fine with being on the spot. I mean, there's like hundreds of people like you that, that you know history and story, and you've worked with, or you know something about them, and you've researched. And the same thing with out there at Hollywood Forever. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place. And because I asked you when I was there last, I knew Judy Tenuta is there, and Jonathan Gold. You know, Judy was a good friend. Jonathan Gold, the the food writer that you would not expect to be a food writer if you ever met him. And now, is Estelle the only Golden Girl out there of the four?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I've been meaning to ask you that, and that's one of the last places we stop on the tour. One of the last. I won't tell the very last, but the one of the last. And it's meaningful every time I've been there. You know, there's certain places. Years ago, Lucille Ball was interned at Forest Lawn, and then they moved her, so she's in New York now. And I asked Lucy Arnaz one day why it was moved, and she said, you know, it was a family decision. But when she was out there at Forest Lawn, my grandparents are out there, and I'd always take flowers for Lucy, and I would take flowers for my grandparents. And same thing with Estelle. You know, it's this thing that you feel you need to pay respects to somebody that was so respectful to you and to the world.
Yes, and someone did a little painting that says "Picture at Sicily, 1912," and it's got her image on it. And so people leave all sorts of stuff at the grave.
Yeah, it's really fascinating what people leave at certain mementos you know, like I was looking at the picture of the gravesite and all the rocks, you know, on top, and like at my great grandparents back in South Dakota, I was there, and they have a lot of coins. It's you talk about all the different things and traditions and the different religious aspects of what you leave and what you do, you know, which is just a way to, you feel warmer, you know, you feel like they're there with you. I do. I'm sure you're there very often, but don't you feel a sense of warmth with the whole place and the people?
I really do. I just got back from San Francisco. I was up there attending the Silent Film Festival, and they showed a ton of silent films that featured not just stars that are at Hollywood Forever, but there's a cinematographer who is at Hollywood Forever, Harold Rawson. They showed one of his movies up there. They showed an assistant director. One of his movies was on the thing that's at Hollywood Forever. And every time I see that, I clap or I get all excited. And I know it sounds silly, but I spend a lot of time with these people, even the ones that aren't super famous, like the crew people that are there. Yeah. And I feel this kind of bond with them. And I feel like, I know it sounds weird, but I feel proud of them. Like, he's on my tour. He's terrific. And I feel this intimacy and this connection with people that I never got to meet, which I know might sound odd, but
no, the thing is, and what's phenomenal about your tour is you do highlight the unfamous to the world, but they're famous to their family and those people are famous to the stars. They're their people that hold them up. The makeup artists, the craftsmen that are buried there. And people don't realize that Yellow Brick Road was not built by the actors and actresses. It was built by the craftsmen that you highlight on the tour. Yes, you do highlight the people that are the actors, but you integrate the other people too, which is great. And that's what we all should know, those people. I love going to film festivals like you. And what I love about a film festival versus a regular movie is film festivals, 99% of the people wait till the very end of the credits versus the people that get up right when that, the end comes, they're gone. And you think, there's going to be 200 people that they're going to put their names. And the other night, because I was at a film festival and I was in the movie, I thought, okay, everybody waited, which I was glad, because I want everyone in the whole audience to see my face and my name, because those people are just as important as the people that we do know on a daily basis, the names. And that's what's great about highlighting them.
They are, like with Harold Rawson, the great cinematographer at Hollywood Forever. I kind of joke on the tour, Marilyn's saying diamonds are a girl's best friend, but I think if you're an actress, a good cinematographer is a girl's best friend, because you could be puffy or bloated or have a zit or a bad day or be tired, and those guys could still make you look incredible. And Harold Rawson Jean Harlow films, Marilyn Monroe, we shot a movie with her, tons of movies with Lana Turner. I mean, yeah, there's the glamour that we love. There's definitely people behind that for sure.
Yes, your cinematographer, your lighting, and your makeup.
Oh,
And if everybody remembers back in the, I was doing an infomercial. I was talent on the infomercial, and we were out in Malibu, and we had to film it on a Sunday. And we're out there, and I'm talking to the makeup lady, and I'm honestly, I'm nice to everybody, but some people aren't. You know, I've watched them. You should never treat anybody that they're lower than you in any industry, but I do see it all the time. People treating waiters and waitresses bad and stuff. You just want to smack them. But anyway, this makeup artist, she's working on me, and I said, "Oh, I understand that you're busy. Everybody's busy in town." She says, "Yeah, it's the OJ trial that was downtown." I said, "Oh." I said, "Who are you working for?" She goes, "ABC News. I've got Ted Koppel all week." And it was Nightline. And she says, every night I have to be there. And I don't know if you were around Los Angeles when that was going on, but they have on the other side of the courtroom or courthouse that all the people would go in, they'd film. They have this, think of Hollywood Squares, but 20 times more, all these squares. One was ABC and one was NBC, and one was CNN, you know, and all these people. I don't even think CNN was around. And so that's where they filmed. So they had these different things. And she had to do Ted Koppel every night. So Ted Koppel stands there, and you see the whole courtyard, the court building behind you. I said, "Oh, is it great working with him?" You know, you think Ted Koppel. She goes, "Oh, he's just horrible. He's so mean to everybody." And I said, "Do you do something mean to him? Like make him look bad, like a scar, something like that?" She goes, "Worse." I said, "Worse?" She goes, "I make him look so good that when he gets back to Washington, D.C., no makeup artist is going to make him look that good. So he'll look like crap the rest of his life, and I will never work with him again." I said, "That's great. So you do your best to where everything else is going to look bad." And I thought, interesting, really interesting. So I thought I liked that theory. So whenever I was working on Home and Family, which was a show out at Universal for Hallmark, it was a morning show. The makeup artist and she knew that girl that said that, because I told her, and she goes, "I feel the same way. If there's somebody, you'll work with them once and then forget it." But that's my little Hollywood insight on makeup artists. Be nice to them because they could make you look really good. In fact, after I worked on that show, I had a picture with the other actors, and my mom said, "Did you make her mad because you look really good?" I go, "No, she's just really good." And she'll work with me again. I keep her in my Rolodex, if you know what that is.
Yeah, I think it's important to be kind to everybody. I like that phrase, be kind. Everybody out there is fighting some kind of a battle. It's so true.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, we both were together 4th of July out in Savannah, Georgia. Yep. Oh, that was a highlight of my whole week. When that's why I love Facebook for things like that, reconnecting with people. In fact, next week I'm going to reconnect with someone after 45 years, and they live in Hollywood. We're getting together that we knew each other back then, and he heard me on NPR, and he said, "It can't be the same George Geary." And sure enough, it is. And he texted me or sent me a little instant message on Facebook. When people say they hate Facebook or they aren't on it, there's pros and cons, but I love it when I see that you're in Savannah, or you saw I was in Savannah, and you said, "Wait a minute, we're down the street." And I mean, we're 3,000 miles away almost, and there we are. And I got to meet your whole beautiful family.
They thought you were delightful, so it was really fun to have you meet them.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yes, it was very hot though. But it's hot back here in LA too. And I was just up in San Francisco. It was 60 degrees. So now why did I leave San Francisco?
Yeah, and they did most of it at the Castro Theater, didn't they?
They did, which while it's still a theater,
yeah,
I'm going to do another day on December 2nd, a day of silent film. So I'm going to try to go up for that too. But I kind of feel like it's not going really well with the situation, the
Right.
AE that owns the Castros. So for me, I feel like I gotta cherish and enjoy it while I still can.
Yeah, it's similar to our theaters downtown LA, the Orpheum and things. That's that feel, but they're in the middle of a city block, and I've seen a lot of different movies there, and it's a beautiful, beautiful theater, and I just hope it doesn't. I know people need to make money, and you can't get 3,000 people into a movie like you did before, but we have faith and we hope. And I'm sorry I didn't win the $1 billion this week. That was the lottery, because I'm already planning on what I would do with the $1 billion. I would take Hollywood Boulevard and redo a few of the streets back to original. I'd bring Sardi's back and have breakfast at Sardi's, and I would redo a few more theaters downtown LA that are hidden, and bring them back. And I would have to worry about making money at them. I would bring them back, and it would be like a nonprofit place, and people would be able to see theater and silent films and all sorts of things. So,
Well, and the thing
but
is, the Castro is so, as you know, it's such a cultural institution for the city of San Francisco, for the LGBTQ plus community, for the city, for the film community. There's so many communities where that
yes.
it's like a sacred place,
And if anybody has not seen the film Milk, about Harvey Milk, it filmed all on that street, and I was in the movie with the 10,000 people marching with candles down markets during the horrible killing of the mayor and the supervisor, they called them there instead of city council members, Harvey Milk. But I was there recently, about a month ago, in the Castro, and I had been there since COVID. So where Harvey Milk's photo studio was, that they filmed in the actual place, which was fascinating. It's now something else, but back then they redid it, and I was walking around, and you felt like you were back in 1978. All of the storefronts were back into that look. The only thing, and I shouldn't love this, but I like to see what they did wrong. So when I go on and I see, okay, the goofs, and the one goof they did in the filming of that show was Castro did not have the parking, the little squares that they put where your car should be here and your car should be here. Those weren't even invented. They didn't do that back then, and they had them in the movie, and so people were complaining about that. And I thought, of all things to complain, it's an easy thing. But
great film though, and
I think it's a great movie, and it shows that city and how they were able to dress it, similar to La La Land. No, not La La Land.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yes, when they redid Hollywood Boulevard, I was out there probably 4 nights in a row, and I don't live there. I live an hour away from Hollywood with no traffic, but I'll still get into Hollywood if there's something going on like that. And going up and down the street, and I posed in front of the Pussycat Theater with some friends of ours, and I thought, okay, this you would never have done. You wouldn't even look at the sign. That is horrible. But they had that beautiful neon and the light bulbs going, and the Pussycat Theater. You thought, okay, it's sad, but Hollywood Boulevard looked better back then. All the scum that they thought it was.
There's no parking. I took a lift down there. I went down there during the daytime. I went down there several times at night, and it wasn't to see Brad and Leo. It was just to see Hollywood in 1968. It was just kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, it really was. And how they dressed that set, even though it was real, every window had stuff that, and then you see the movie and you're like, well, they didn't even show that window, but they went into so much detail, which was beautiful. It really was. They did a great job.
I noticed hair ads for like hair products from the 60s in the little corner window. Like the attention to detail was astounding. So I was clapping on Oscar night, because I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that won the production design Oscar.
I think it did. I think it did also. Did you like the negligees in the window of it's RuPaul's office, that building? Because all of them were all these old mannequins, and you thought, boy, they weren't very sexy, and they were trying to sell negligees in the window. But it just, and you and I are over at Larry Edmonds' store, and it was neat to see that they used and put the original signage up and things. But what year did you come to Hollywood?
2000.
Okay, because I didn't hang out in Hollywood until probably 1980, so 20 years before you. But so many great bookstores were on Hollywood Boulevard. Pickwick B. Dalton, and that was a conglomerate of like 5 of the buildings, and you kind of walked around, and a lot of Larry Edmonds type books stores that were really neat. So, yep, it was cool. Are you going to have a piece of cheesecake?
Because sitting here staring at this, I'm like, I gotta have some. So I'm gonna cut myself a slice, but I am gonna save a lot of it because I'm doing a little informal get together at Hollywood Forever on Sunday to celebrate Estelle's life, career, legacy, and I will bring some cheesecake for anybody that wants to come down in the 100-degree heat and eat cheesecake. That's great. Okay.
Are they doing the movies at night there now?
Yeah, they're doing the Cinespia stuff right now at night. And yeah, we have all sorts of events there. HollywoodForever.com. If you go to the website and click on cultural events, it'll list everything that's going on.
Yeah. I get so many emails from so many groups. It looks great. Yeah.
And here we go.
And as soon as I get an email, I put it in my calendar of whatever's going on in case I can go to something, you know. But so how is it?
So creamy and delicious. Oh my God.
Do you feel like you should be sitting around talking about world problems or happiness? Because that's a chapter too, happiness.
Yes. And they always talked about men while they were eating cheesecake as well.
Oh, constantly, you know? And just the look of, and I go back and forth, Rue, Blanche, you know, you look and when she said, get out of here, you know, Rose would say something. And, St. Olaf, you know, Minnesota. I've been there.
That's a real town?
Yeah, there really is St.
I've been to Minnesota before, seriously?
Yeah. There's a St. Olaf University too. It's and the Viking type people are in that region. They don't make hookah or whatever the desserts were, but now Betty White was born in Oak Park, Illinois, and they were planning on the 100th year anniversary. I don't know if you saw a lot of the media on that, but they would say, be like Rose was their motto. You know, be a nice person, be like Rose. And everybody around Oak Park, which Oak Park housed 2 other famous people, well, really more. A lot of comedians came from Oak Park. Kathy Griffith came from Oak Park. She was born there. Judy Tenuta was from Oak Park.
Oh, wow.
So you had comics. But Hemingway was from there, so his home is there. And Frank Lloyd Wright, the famous architect, is from there also. And there's many, many more, but those are a handful. And everybody in their front yard had these big posters that were sticks that had Betty White, and her favorite junk food was red vines. So they gave out red vines to everybody everywhere. The Red Vine Licorice Company delivered cases of them. The roses were all over the place because her name was Rose on the show. And I loved Betty White when she was on Mary Tyler Moore. She was Sue Ann Nivens. And she was kind of rude and crass and a sex pot. She was kind of like Rue, you know, when you look at the different things. Originally, I guess she had tried out for that position, and they said no because she didn't want it because it was too close to what she just came from with Mary Tyler Moore only a few years prior. But Estelle didn't have a whole lot of television before the show, and it's been known that she had stage fright. Her first year, you see her transformation as the older lady was a little older looking. And I loved when they would make her look like she is today, and then they would do flashbacks from when she was younger. And the character that played Dorothea Young had her mannerisms down perfectly, and the things she would say. There was a lot of people. It's come out more. More people really watch the show, but when it wasn't going into syndication, you thought, I don't remember that. And it was the pilot, which they had Coco, the gay cook, and they didn't pull him from it because he was gay. They pulled his character off because Mom Sophia got so much better traction and laughs, and because they thought she'd be temporary, they didn't think she'd be full time like she was. They thought once in a while she'll still be at Shady Pines, but when she comes in, I'm okay. The place burnt down, and it's like, oh. But you could just imagine older people thinking of the Shady Pines that way, and how they don't want to go to Shady Pines. And whenever she'd do something wrong, her daughter would grab her arm and say, I'm sending you back to Shady Pines.
What are some of your favorite Estelle moments? Like what the funniest like one-liners or things that she
it was the pilot. And is the fancy man in the kitchen? She didn't call him gay. It's the fancy man. And then they both went to the dog races together and went to Wolfie's, So it was the fancy man in the kitchen, and we're going to go eat. I thought it was fascinating. She really, if you look at the men, she had a lot of men boyfriends on the show. She was one that got married on the show.
Mickey Rooney. She dated Mickey Rooney for a while on the show, for an episode.
There's a lot of male callers. One of my favorite was Burt Reynolds. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, that sounds so funny.
Yeah. When they kept saying, Ma quits lying. You don't, it was kind of, and then knocks on the door, and Burt Reynolds, Burt, I'll be right there. It's like, it was that type of thing. And they started having a lot of stars on that show right at the beginning. They didn't wait. Like I Love Lucy, it was years later they started having stars, most of when they came to Hollywood in those scenes. But with Golden Girls, stars were wanting to be on that show. And a lot of stars that became big, George Clooney was on the show. There was, offhand, I can't think of everybody, but there was a lot of people that became bigger, and George Clooney was one.
Tarantino played Elvis in the Elvis scene where he's one of the people at Sophia's wedding.
Yeah, there was that one. It just, there's so much on that show, and you can't really get bored. That's one of those shows where if you're flipping channels in one of their shows, their segments are, you stop to watch it. You stop and you want to watch it and see what's going to happen. And it's just phenomenal. I think it'll last another 40 years, kind of like I Love Lucy has. I Love Lucy, I don't think is on anything really all the time. The problem with I Love Lucy, and I hope they don't do this ever with Golden Girls, people don't realize, let's just take Hallmark. I don't know if Lucy's on Hallmark, but when it has been, or Nick at Night, Lucy had, hundreds of episodes. They only take like 60 and they broadcast those 60 over and over. They're the top 60. And you're thinking, I have not seen this one or that one in so many years. And the other thing those shows do is, back in the day, Lucy was 26 minutes. And now they're 21 to 22 minutes, like Friends. So what that Lucy show, the people that broadcast Lucy, is they cut out 3 or 4 minutes of the show. So to watch an actual I Love It, you have to have the DVDs, or you watch Pluto TV. They start with one and they go all the way in. So you keep watching it. It takes 5 days to watch every single Lucy episode. I hope that they never do that with the Golden Girls, of cut sections. I've noticed what they do now with Golden Girls is when the credits are rolling and the beginning of the show is rolling, you might have a screen of the show that was before or after going. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I
I'm
have
sure.
Hallmark, and sometimes late at night, I'll just have the Hallmark channel on when I'm getting ready for bed, and I'll watch the Golden Girls. And then I also have Hulu, and they show them on Hulu. And I've noticed they do cut certain scenes and certain dialogue because I've sometimes inadvertently watched it on Hulu, like the next day that I watched the.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
wait, they cut that out. So I think they do cut, unfortunately.
yeah. It's too bad, but I Love Lucy, no cuts, bonus DVDs, and I think I have all the Golden Girl DVDs too. I think. I don't think I can play DVDs now, you know. And what is that little fan you have to keep
My
yourself
friend
cool?
Jared Barnes was just in New Orleans, and he knows how much I love the Golden Girls. He does too. He got me this.
And you're picture it, Sicily, 1912.
Isn't that great?
Uh,
It's like 100 in my kitchen right now. This is coming in handy.
Absolutely. And your dress is beautiful. Blanche's bedroom.
Blanche's bedroom. I went to the Golden Girls pop-up restaurant last summer in Beverly Hills, and I laid on the recreation of Blanche's boudoir in this outfit, and I literally blended right into the bedspread. So that was pretty funny.
Is that also the Beverly Hills Hotel paper in the restaurant?
I think it is. It looks very similar, that banana print.
Yeah, yeah. It makes everybody look like you're on vacation no matter what, you know.
I do
And
need.
that's the other thing with Golden Girls. I'm trying to think of top or historical things. Is I think there's some Golden Girl Facebook pages and people are fighting all the time, and I just kind of and I don't even bother with the untruths and people thinking they know the truths. But the original Golden Girls house doesn't look anything like it does. It was for sale a few years back over in Brentwood.
I went. It was during lockdown. It was for sale.
Yeah.
So Darren, his husband, and Jack and I all went and got a tour.
Yeah.
And
Inside doesn't look like it. I was hoping they'd do the same thing as they did with the Brady Bunch house, but they didn't.
well,
But
the inside looked nothing like it, but the outside did.
the outside, and they only filmed the outside during the first season. Then the Disney company had the Walt Disney and MGM studios that they had in Florida. They had a replica of it that they filmed, but the girls were never outside. You never saw them out in the driveway. You would see a taxi cab drive up and then they would open the door. You would never see any shots from with any of the girls. It was a still shot. Excuse me. So that's what they did in Florida is they reenacted that house. Like you said, they sold the one in Brentwood, and I went past it recently as only about 3 blocks away, Betty White's house that she lived in. And both houses, Betty White's has been completely torn down, and they're going to do a mini mansion of some sort. And then the Golden Girl original house, the front doesn't look anything like it. So I'm glad I was out there before it was completely gone. But if you look at that picture of me, it looks like I could be in Walt Disney World back in the day. Now they don't even have that there. So they both are gone. So it's kind of sad. But if you want modern families houses, all 3 of them are standing and you can go out and take pictures in front of those houses. See, everyone should live in LA and Hollywood because our house, and just down the street from Hollywood Forever is the Happy Days house there on Cahuenga. So I could do a whole tour on just houses of where we filmed TV shows.
Yes, there's so many. There's history on every single corner in this town, and that's one of the things I love about it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, George, this has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you. I'm so honored that you did this with me today.
Well, I hope everybody tuned in for the whole thing and they weren't too bored. And, you have questions later on. I can answer those for you if I have the answer. I had the strangest question. I'll leave you with this. I had the strangest question. Somebody found out that I had worked on the show and they said, what department were you in? I was in prop department, but not really. It was an offshoot because I worked on the Colbys. that show. It's a Living was a show I worked on, a show that was on cable because cable just started, called Brothers, that was filmed out at Paramount. So there were a lot of shows with food and stuff. And he wanted to know why. Can you see my refrigerator and the water? Remember the Brady Bunch? They were the first to have that. You thought, wow, they're rich because they can get water in the door. Now, good luck trying to find a refrigerator that you can't get that is brand new. But anyway, if you watch Golden Girls, you'll see a coffee mug in that spot all the time and they never used it. And I was looking and I'm thinking, okay, I don't have the answer, but I think the practical answer, it dripped because they didn't have paper, like a paper towel in it. And that drip you would hear on the microphones. So they had to do something. And that refrigerator was not a new refrigerator that we would use. It went out half the time when I would put the 7 cheesecakes in there. So that's what it was. And like I said, Friday night, I'd have to fill it with 7 identical cheesecakes on the same type of platter, and we changed them up. And I only watched the show taped twice because I was in my 20s. And who wants to sit around with a bunch of 50-year-old old ladies talk about their aches and pains? If I knew today, I would have my phone and I would be there, even though you aren't supposed to take pictures on the set, but I would still sneak them because I'm very good at that. And it's history that you don't realize you're going to be a part of. And then when it happens, you're like, there's no rhyme or reason, except it was a phenomenal show and phenomenal people. And Estelle, I'm so glad I got to know her, and just sweet, sweet, kind heart, and happy birthday to Estelle. That's all I can say.
Indeed. Happy 100th birthday to Estelle. She is beloved. She is remembered. And I love it when people take the cemetery tour and they light up when they see her. It's really fun to watch the joy that she continues to give people.
Yep. Still does and still will.
Yes. Well, George, thank you so much. Let's do more episodes together in the future if you have time.
Oh, let's do Brown Derby next.
Yes, let's do that.
We can do something and talk about the Brown Derby.
Well, guys, thank you so much for watching, and please stay tuned for more food, fun, and film history from Hollywood Kitchen.